Well, one of the 8 Republicans who voted to oust Speaker Kevin McCarthy is the Montana Representative Matt Rosendale, and he joins us live once again. Congressman, thanks for being back here on the Hill. I know you have been a busy man this week, and lots of folks have wanted your time. Jim Jordan, Steve Scalise. Do you want one of those two to be the next Speaker of the House?
I'm sharing traits, not names, Blake. I think the next Speaker of the House, number one criteria, has to be trustworthy. Has to be somebody that comes into our conference behind closed doors, and when they make commitments to us, we know that when the door opens up and they walk out and they begin making negotiations with Hakeem Jeffries or Chuck Schumer or Joe Biden, that they stand by the commitments that they made to the conference. And unfortunately, that's what Kevin McCarthy wasn't able or willing to do, which is why he's no longer the Speaker. The next thing that the next Speaker has to do is be able to share a vision for the conference of what we're going to be able to accomplish over the next 18 months and incite some enthusiasm amongst the conference to make sure that we're all motivated to work with that individual to go in that direction.
Does Donald Trump backing Jim Jordan help or hurt the process here?
I don't know. I will tell you this. There was some remarks floating around the end of the week about Donald Trump being eligible to be the Speaker, and I can tell you this much. He certainly would have negotiated a lot better debt ceiling deal or put us on the path to fulfilling our 12 appropriation bills better than the current leadership did. But I think that his services are as highest and best use is going to be back at the Oval Office.
All right, so I mean, we know how you feel about Kevin McCarthy, and clearly you're referencing him in leadership there. There have been some talk here in the last hour or so, Congressman, about Kevin McCarthy's future. Of course, he's still a member of Congress, and he has told local media back home that he intends to keep his job as a member of Congress, maybe even run again. You clearly feel the way you do about Kevin McCarthy. Do you think he should resign?
No, I do not. You'll find, Blake, that everything that I base my decisions on is strictly about policy. Nothing is personal with me. I served in the Montana legislature, and I've got colleagues on both sides of the aisles that I have very strong relationships with. I have them in Washington, D.C. in my short tenure. I've been able to secure some very strong relationships on both sides of the aisle, and none of these things are personal to me. I have animosity or anxiety towards anyone.
So, Congressman, one of the big deals here in Washington right now, one of the questions is, who on earth would want to be the Speaker of the House if all it takes is one person to bring up this quote-unquote motion to vacate, basically a vote to kick the Speaker out? And there's some talk here in Washington about if that threshold needs to be modified, if it needs to be raised. Are you in support of changing the motion to vacate rule?
I'm not. That rule was in place for over 200 years, Blake, and it was very durable. And I don't know why at this point, all of a sudden, people feel that we should be changing the rules. That was a very large part of the debate and discussion that we had in January when Kevin McCarthy was first elected, to basically put the rules back in place.
Why would anyone run, though, Congressman, why would anyone run, though, if one person, can say you're out? And you mentioned that the motion to vacate's been there, but it was really held at a senior leadership level. This was now brought to an anyone level. So if one person, you're basically saying you support one person being able to say, see ya.
I'm sorry, but your facts aren't right, Blake. For over 200 years, the motion to vacate was available for one person to make. And Nancy Pelosi changed that most recently. And again, this is why we had to restore the rules back in January, because they had consolidated the power over the last 15, 18 years into the hands of the Speaker and into the hands of the Rules Committee, so that the rest of the legislators, the rest of the members of Congress, were relegated to a substandard existence. They weren't able to represent their constituents equally, like the super legislative status that was granted to the Speaker and those 13 people on the Rules Committee. And so the motion to vacate had always been available to a single member. And one member can make the motion, but it takes a majority to pass any motion on the floor. And so there's a multitude of motions that are like that. There's a multitude of privileged motions that are like that. Anyone can make it, but it takes a majority of the body still to pass it.
Thanks for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to subscribe. Click the red button to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.